When he closed his eyes, the world he had been seeing opened before him, a peaceful, everyday life intertwined with his share of rough and tough combat. For every day of the last 17 years, he had dreamed such dreams. Kong, a 25-year-old raised in an orphanage, felt he wasn't particularly good at anything else. He had been doing part-time work at a convenience store for a few years now. Because he didn't talk much and tended to keep quiet, he continued to repeat his ordinary days over and over. But there was one thing that set him apart. Every day, he continued to live in the same dream, and he had been doing so for over 17 years. While this might frighten some for him, a man living a poor life in a one-room lodging with a monotonous job, his dream was his only refuge. The first time he had this dream was at the orphanage. He found himself in a vast, beautiful new world. In this dream, he was dropped into an unfamiliar place where he saw an incredible building. Upon arriving, he encountered a mysterious woman wearing a fox mask. As he followed the fox, he arrived at a huge gathering where everyone was playing a game. All of them picked their game pieces, and in the dream, he looked like an adult, wearing the same unfamiliar clothes and a mask like the others. He was confused as to why he was wearing these things. Even his body and voice felt as if they belonged to an adult. One of the men told him to sit next to him. Even though he knew it was a dream, it felt like he was conversing in real life. In the social realm, he gave them his nickname, Snowman, and from that day forward he became Snowman. The woman with the fox mask instructed him to select the game piece he would personally control. He found himself facing a character selection screen. Since it was just a dream, he chose the Magician, an unintuitive frost attribute class. One of the men commented that he was quite bold for a first-time player. Thus began his first game. The other masked players appeared experienced with the game, and enjoyed it greatly. Soon, they arrived at the game's final stage. A difficult battle loomed, and it seemed they would be annihilated. He had no choice but to close his eyes and choose an option. The options he had before him were: escape, create a small shield, use frost magic to bind the creature's feet, or persuade it with words. He had 39 seconds to choose. Ultimately, he selected option 3. His character raised his staff and struck the ground, creating an ice domain around him. The ice began to freeze the giant lizard that screamed in pain. No matter how many times he saw it, magic was awe-inspiring. The next man rolled the dice and sliced the creature in two. This marked the end of their adventure. The fox woman then asked if they all enjoyed the world of eternity. Yes, they all did. To Snowman, the game was fun. It was rich in strategy, and depending on their choices, the fate of their game pieces changed completely. There were numerous options available, allowing him to mix and match attributes and classes of the game pieces in countless ways. It was only a trial version, but it was entertaining nonetheless. Since it was a dream, he decided not to overthink it. It didn't matter where he was or who they were, it was simply enjoyable. Every night from that day on, he could immerse himself in the world of eternity with those mysterious strangers. There was no one in his waking life who would believe such a tale. When he was younger and confided in friends about his experiences, they called him crazy and stopped associating with him. However, it was natural for someone who didn't talk much, because he couldn't fit in, to say something that seemed unbelievable. Thus, he was outcast as a liar. Yet, the dreams continued. It did not matter if they didn't believe him, that place was his refuge. Today, he returned to that dream world. Upon arrival, he was greeted by the other members. They seemed friendly as they argued about who would partner with him for the last day. Mr. Snowman felt appreciated here. He felt at home, of course. Over the past 17 years, he had grown curious about who these people were. At one point, he even considered the possibility that they might be gods. However, he feared that if he learned the secret of this dream, he might never be able to experience it again. So he never asked? But now, it didn't matter if they were gods, monsters, or demons. In his dreams, the cycle of rolling dice continued. This place had become everything to him, and enjoying the world of eternity was the most important thing after all. Suddenly, An authoritative voice declared that today Mr. Snowman would have a solo adventure due to the great sage's last endeavor. The jester questioned whether Mr. Snowman was truly going to attempt the final ascent. Although all the game pieces had been remarkable thus far, none were as great as the ascension. As its name suggested, ascension was the climb into the sky, the last adventure of the world of eternity, and the conclusion of this game. Over the last 17 years, having repeatedly played in the world of eternity, he had created many legendary characters. Because of this, they regarded Snowman, who had reached the peak, as an idol. But one day, there was an announcement that the trial version of the world of eternity would end today. They stated that there would be an official release, which could mean he wouldn't be able to dream this dream again. He wasn't sure, but he believed the others understood what this meant. Snowman had enjoyed this game passionately, to the point where he had memorized the rulebook. Still, it was a shame. If only he had a little more time, he would have created his ultimate 31st game piece, his final game piece that would have been the culmination of all the best parts and strategies he had mastered over 17 years. The fox girl told him not to be too sad that the trial version was coming to an end because tomorrow their dream would finally become a reality. One of the players remarked that it had taken too long, and it was time for them to reclaim their divinity and take revenge on the insects that had put them in this position. Snowman had never heard them speak like this before, and he didn't fully understand what they meant. However, he didn't worry about it. He merely needed to concentrate on the last ascension. For the past 17 years, out of the 30 game pieces he had used, only 9 had been able to challenge for the ascension, and this would be his last chance to do it. Everything hinged on this roll. However, he made a mistake, causing his mana to spiral backward, energy backlash hitting him like a shockwave. Consequently, he fell from the prospect of ascending. It was Mr. Snowman's 10th attempt, yet he still failed to ascend. A question surfaced. Would he now give up the adventure? Ascending to the sky was undoubtedly challenging for a human, yet on the last day, he was determined to ascend. He pressed yes, and the system informed him that his character would continue to shape his own destiny. Although their exciting adventures were coming to an end, they would still live on. The other characters cheered him on, telling him that it was wonderful he could challenge for the ascension, which only he could do. Unfortunately, while he enjoyed playing this game and cherished the world of eternity, he ultimately believed this had been the finale of his 17-year journey. At least, that's what he thought. He found himself back where it all began. Instead of familiar characters, he faced players he had encountered before. They declared that the insect that had deceived them and acted like a god was here. One of the characters ordered him to be captured. Instantly, a golden band appeared around his neck, electrocuting him and causing him to writhe in pain. He didn't understand why they were suddenly so hostile. They questioned how he dared to act naive, and wondered what fool had allowed him into their realm. They couldn't believe they had ever spoken to someone like him. Because he had deceived the gods, he would have to pay with his life. In their power, they levitated him, painfully displaying the consequences of his supposed transgressions. They declared that he would die here. As he faced this dire fate, a voice disagreed. All eyes turned to him. Before them stood a handsome man, aura and presence emanating from him. One of the players questioned what he was saying. The man addressed them calmly, suggesting they were all too agitated and needed to calm down. Snowman thought this man was here to help him. He had always been present while they played the game of eternity and was one of the more influential figures. Karuna inquired how they could spill human blood in heaven, arguing that it would be akin to throwing garbage into their own home. It was best they returned Snowman to where he belonged. The other players cursed his presence, denouncing what they referred to as absolute nonsense. Karuna explained that he understood the sentiment, that sending Snowman back wouldn't hold him accountable for his sins, but he asked if everyone had forgotten what day it was. The girl with the cat mask declared that today was the day the harvest began. With a smirk, Karuna declared he would simply return Snowman to where he should die like an insect, serving as a sacrifice to a madness that had manifested now that the official version had come to fruition. They laughed and released him, asserting that there was no way they could stain the heavens with his tainted blood. One stated he should remain on the land and die like a bug, paying the price for attempting to treat the gods as equals. At that moment, Snowman realized that Karuna had never tried to save him. He had sought to make the experience more painful. In that instant, a voice entered Snowman's mind, questioning if he could hear him. The voice didn't belong to himself, only he could perceive it. To his astonishment, he recognized that the voice belonged to Karuna. He explained that the place where Mr. Snowman lived had turned into another world. A rural marriage was scheduled for today, and his world would be combined with the world of eternity. This means that the worlds were being merged. In order to recover their weakened strength, the gods had chosen madness over divinity. Hardships and stories would now be sold to other believers in exchange for madness. This madness would be used to help the gods reclaim their original strengths. There was only one way to see if he would succeed. He must reach Ascension, the final adventure that he had failed to complete. It would also help him if he could draw attention to himself to acquire madness. If he could speak about events in the heavens out loud, he would give the gods justification to intervene, so he had to be cautious. How is he supposed to reach Ascension when he's not a game piece? Karuna approached him with a smile, which seemed almost like good luck. He opened the portal to Snowman's world. Let's watch how this insect struggles, he declared with a gleam in his eyes. However, one of the players attempted to stop him, but it was too late. He was sent back to his homeland, falling like a meteorite. As he descended, they stared at him. Now it's time to harvest some madness. Meanwhile, back in his own world, he questioned whether he was still alive. Thankfully, his body seemed to be all right, although he thought it might be a possibility. He couldn't believe they were actually gods. Moreover, they weren't just figments of his dreams, they were real gods. More importantly, where was he? It was so dark he could hardly see anything. The system informed him that the world of eternity was being applied and that it was at 97%. As he realized this, the game completed the application process, and he was welcomed to Pandea, the world of eternity. A bright light shone before him, revealing a ruined city. As he looked at it, he felt a sense of amusement. He had truly entered the world of eternity. He confirmed that over 7 billion people had joined this world. He was given the decision to select his character's skills. His first adventure would soon begin. However, despite the gods explaining that his world had merged with the world of eternity, he was still in shock. It seemed that the place where he lived had indeed transformed into another world, and it was no lie, which meant that the game he had been playing so far wasn't merely a dream. To make matters worse, the people he had cherished and considered family only viewed him as an insect. This made him furious. The fact that he looked at the door with equal standing to them, despite being friends and celebrating his victory, made it even worse. They had discarded him the moment they discovered he was human. He closed himself off from his world due to the indifference surrounding his orphanage. Those so-called gods were the only beings to whom he had opened himself, and they had betrayed him. Was the only reason for all of this his humanity? He felt he should be allowed to be angry. After all, they were trashy gods. He decided to do what he had been best at for 17 years and show them that he could do better. He would become the ultimate 31st game piece himself and ascend. He chose to be a shadow summoner since the world of eternity wasn't too different from a tablet RPG. He had played 30 games so far, and what he found was that character creation was the most important aspect in the world of eternity. Even in real life, your attributes are predetermined upon birth, so why would a game be any different? The issue was that because reality had combined with the game, he couldn't create another character if his character died. That marked the end. This was why he needed to create a character that could reach Ascension, despite whatever variables might arise. It was possible to choose multiple classes in the world of eternity, and it was also possible to delve deeply into a specific class. Obviously, some classes were better than others. When he played other classes, his party had a lot of influence. But now he had to rely on himself. In truth, there was a character he had been unable to test out before the trial version ended, so he decided to go with that. He would pick a summoner from the Malaysian classes and take Shadow as his attribute. He put all his points into Wisdom, with some points in cooking for his talents. The summoner was an ambiguous spot, whether it came to damage, healing, or support. The shadow attribute also wasn't considered particularly strong in the game, but that was only because no one knew how these two aspects interacted with each other. As for his nickname, he chose Snowman. As expected, the first adventure was random, Adventure 1 Moonlight Dance. He remembered this place. It was an adventure designed for new players so they could adjust to the world of eternity. But that was only in name. He remembered the difficulty being hellish. He would need to clear it while letting traps wear down his health. The Forgotten Moon ruins were filled with traps, and it was far too dangerous for someone like him, who had neither real skills nor experience with traps. Plus, the Shadow Summoner was a character type that moved slowly. Having put all his points into wisdom, he knew this wasn't going to be easy. If he had known this was going to be the first adventure, he might have picked another class. He felt a bit unnerved that he recognized the scenery and felt like a game piece on the table. He hadn't felt this way when he was the one rolling the dice, but now it was a rather nerve-wracking experience. At the entrance to the Forgotten Moon ruins, there were specific options to open the Forgotten Moon door, though he couldn't remember if it was the door or the lever. Options appeared. What would he choose? Force the door open, pull the right lever, pull the left lever, or something else. The system provided a hint for what he should do. He worried that the options in the official version might differ from the trial version he had played, but he was relieved to find that things were the same. After all, he had played this game for over 17 years. He had to pull the left lever first, and then the right one. When it came to picking the correct option, he was the best at it, even though he might not fully remember everything. If there were too many options, he still felt confident in his decision-making. Upon entering, he arrived at the first gate of the Forgotten Moon ruins. He had to step on the pattern tiles in a specific order, but stepping on the wrong one would activate a trap. This was no longer a game, it was undeniable reality. If he messed up, it could cost him dearly. He had played through the world of eternity with most of the talents already, and because of that, he knew about the hidden option that could only be chosen with those specific talents. The most important thing was his memory. He remembered that there was a password right in front of the first gate. Unfortunately, he couldn't read it because he didn't have the archaeology and theology talents, but that was fine. He already remembered the password. The lion does not share, as it is ferocious. The sheep prefers to go last, as it is docile. The benevolent moon embraces all of them, and the envious wolf follows the lion. It may sound confusing, but it's simple wordplay. According to his memory, he would need to step on the tiles in the order of lion, wolf, moon, and sheep. Then the pattern would repeat. It's not hard. As long as he maintains the order, he will not get hurt. He looks down at the tiles and starts to feel uneasy but says, "It's time to go." He steps on the lion, waiting to see if there will be a reaction. He hesitates to step on the wolf, but once he plants his foot, he realizes that he is correct and begins to cross the bridge in that exact order. He finally makes it to the other side after stepping off the sheep and confidently says, "That was easy." Now that he has cleared the first trial, he is able to select a reward. Due to not receiving any damage, his reward has improved. He thinks about the reward, considering that if he stops now, it would decrease as well. He reflects that this area contains the lesson that you must know your place. If someone were to pursue a high reward without knowing their position, they would be humbled quickly. However, that won't be a problem for him, as he is the main character. After all, he states that this is an adventure game he has memorized completely, and there can't be any mistakes. He reaches a hallway and sees a bunch of torches, realizing that the second trial is an area that can be considered the essence of the ruins. The second trial trap is an area he must clear without any tricks. But he is surprised, saying that he does not remember it being so long from here. His experience and memory will be useless because the traps activate randomly every time one passes through this place. If he had mechanical engineering or trap removal skills, he would be able to dodge the traps. He then notices his reflection on the wall and sees the collar mark on his neck, a scar from Lightning Mask. He calls them scumbags, asserting that they will definitely see each other again. He steps on the red tile, contemplating that who knows if he is wrong, but he just needs to trust his gut. He wonders if the order he recalls them in is correct: red, blue, black. He goes to step on the blue tile, and the trap activates, shooting him in his arm and breaking his staff. He looks over and starts to sweat nervously, saying that it is getting interesting. We see some system windows indicating that people have donated 100 madness, expressing that they find it interesting, even if they can tell it's painful. Yet others say they know this will be the end for him. One of them mentions that the board pieces don't know they're being watched. Snowman then tries to step on the black tile and gets shot again, this time in the thigh. He calls them trash, questioning if they really had to make the red tile the answer 4 times in a row, stating that every time he gets hit, it feels like he is going to pass out from the pain. The next set of tiles consists of red, blue, and black. Since the red tiles have been the only ones correct so far, he chooses blue. We see the chat start laughing at him, saying that he is so entertaining. After they hear the walls closing in on him, they remark that it turns out blue was not the answer. Snowman realizes that if he makes even the smallest mistake, he will be crushed by the ceiling and die. The viewers think that he is done for, noting that now he can't deny it anymore and that he is screwed, even though he still has that much more to go through. They suggest he fake being crazy and just make a run for it as the walls close in on him. Despite his failures, he continues hopping from red to red, and they wonder why he seems to be doing so well all of a sudden. He steps on a black tile and starts to smile, declaring that his analysis is complete. The chatter is confused, asking how he pulled this off. Snowman explains that if his memory serves him right, the traps are set up so that the correct tile repeats itself in sets of 5. Once he sees through their pattern, they become meaningless, and he makes it through to the end. They wonder why the pattern was so easy to predict, and why the traps were made so sloppily. Having cleared the second trial, he has the option to receive a reward again, or to wait. We see that, due to the trap not repeating over 10 times, the reward has improved. He looks down at the box, starting to shake, realizing that if he just picks his reward, he can leave the tutorial. However, he clenches his fist, refusing to stop here. The chatters speculate why he continues, despite being so badly bruised, and wonder if maybe he is a masochist. Asking who is attempting to match his freak, he looks up at the next trial and sees an enchantment door. He states that if he opens this door, he will arrive at the Moon Plaza. The first line says, "Do not be arrogant," followed by, "Know your place," and "Be humble." He knows who is inside, realizing he has 2 options: either ignore the warning and continue for a chance to prove himself, or know his place and leave. He stretches his hand out and puts it on the door, declaring that he will not choose the second option. Peering through, he is surprised to see someone holding a sword. Even the chatters are excited. He sees a knight kneeling on the ground, whose eyes begin to shine blue. The knight stands, calling him arrogant and asking how dare he set foot in this place. He assumes a battle stance, declaring that he will take Snowman's head. Snowman nervously smiles, noting that it has been a while since he last faced the Moonlight Knight. We see the gods throwing their dice down, wondering what is happening with Snowman, and how they are supposed to beat him. They express their frustration, asking how this is meant to be a tutorial event. We flash back to Snowman's earlier experiences as Snowman, recalling that during their initial attempts, they were at a loss as to what to do with Karuna. This event occurs as soon as one progresses to the end of the Temple of the Forgotten Moon. Snowman reflects that there is a safety zone to dodge Karuna's attacks, but there is no reliable way to reach it. As he sidesteps Karuna's attack, he explains that if he gets hit even once, he will be burned to death by the moonlight. It is a terrible boss fight with an instant death pattern. In the early days of playing, many pieces died due to Karuna's moonlight because they rushed in, claiming it was easy. He sees multiple options appear in front of him on a scroll, stating that these tiles are the only way to break through this section. They are the same tiles from the bridge. He emphasizes that the various tiles he has experienced so far, the order and color of these tiles, are key to clearing the dance of the Moonlit Night. The order follows the pattern laid out in the first bridge trap and will be effective until he exits the Temple of the Moon, Karuna begins to charge at him, and he steps on the red lion tile first. We learn that each color has a different role. The red tiles reduce the moonlight surrounding Karuna. As the amount of moonlight decreases, Karuna's movements become slower, and the barrier surrounding him becomes weaker. He continues stepping on the tiles in the correct order, transitioning from wolf to moon. As he prepares to jump on the sheep, Karuna is suddenly right in his face. Snowman notes that Karuna has indeed slowed down and realizes that the red tiles can only be stacked up to 3 times, so he steps on a black sheep tile. Now that Karuna is right in front of him, the effect of the tile kicks in, as a fireball comes from behind. He explains that the black tiles deal damage to Karuna. However, using them charges Karuna's moonlight. Therefore, he must use the red tiles again to reduce its power before he can inflict damage. That's why he steps on the red tiles to weaken the barrier before opting for black. Regardless, Karuna won't go down quickly. As Karuna prepares for his next attack, Snowman recognizes it as an instant death pattern, the Moonlight Slash. Karuna swings his blade, creating a giant blue aura that releases from it. The chatters comment that this difficulty is way too high, and that it is Snowman's fault for entering instead of taking the reward. They are surprised to see that he actually survived the attack, learning that if he infuses himself with moonlight, he can defend against it. The chatters note that, according to the wiki, this is an instant death pattern, and he must have bypassed it by stepping on a blue tile. They realize he is the first person out of humanity to reach the final trial. Karuna charges forward, declaring that Snowman shall be judged. Continuing to step on the red tiles to reduce Karuna's moonlight, the viewers notice Karuna visibly growing weaker, and Snowman smiles confidently. We hear Lightning Mask ask Snowman if there is a reason he must go so far. Snowman looks over, questioning what he means. Lightning Mask explains that in the decision to clear Karuna's dance in the moonlit night, they were surprised to find out that Karuna slows down after stepping on the red tile 3 times. This is why they concluded that avoiding him, rather than defeating him, was the perfect strategy. Even after stepping on the black tile, the damage received is minimal, and it is too dangerous as a plan, Snowman replies, stating simply that it is the right way to proceed. As another attack comes in, hitting Karuna, Snowman steps on the black sheep once more. We see fragments on the floor as Karuna's helmet shatters, demanding that they not disturb the moonlight. Snowman continues by stepping onto another red tile, followed by another one, as he moves toward the black tile. Karuna calls him wicked, but he steps on it anyway. A fireball emerges, striking Karuna's shoulder and breaking his armor. Snowman comments that he doesn't have to do this many more times, as Karuna's flesh is now exposed. Karuna then prepares for another moonlight slash, asking Snowman if he really has to go this far. A scroll reveals that Karuna is receiving continuous damage as he is being eaten away by the moonlight. Snowman remarks that if it weren't for his moonlight slash pattern, Karuna wouldn't be so infamous. Karuna swings at Snowman using a technique called New Moon Steps, a different pattern that employs the moonlight slash. Snowman acknowledges that Karuna is ruthlessly fast but believes he can slow him down by stepping on the red tile. He steps onto the blue stone to shield against the attack and declares that it's time to wrap this up. Karuna tells him to be humble and begins to swing again. Snowman states that this is his last pattern and that it is the original moonlight slash once more while skillfully avoiding the attack that would kill him if he were struck. He realizes he can accumulate the damage onto Karuna with a simple stepping stone gimmick, and he starts to laugh as he enjoys himself, saying it's just like the name suggests, the dance of moonlight. As we see them dancing under the moon, he lands on the black sheep once more. Karuna swings down but glances over to see a fireball coming straight for his head. He braves the attack, and his helmet is knocked off as Karuna drops to his knees. It is then revealed that he is actually an elf. He apologizes to his master, stating that he has failed the mission, just before he is hit in the chest by another attack. His corpse falls to the floor, and Snowman lets out a sigh as he breaks through the last gate of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon. Now, he can choose a reward like he did last time, and he has achieved various accomplishments and nicknames as well. He recalls what Lightning Mask said about why he is trying so hard to kill Karuna, and how he defeated him without avoiding him. Snowman, however, is firm in his decision, asserting that dodging him was not the best choice. Instead, he can just make up a reason for it, as there is a reason why he had to defeat Karuna right now. He stretches out his hand, and a shadowy figure begins to envelop Karuna. We see it consume him, and Snowman is pleased to see a scroll stating, "You have succeeded in summoning the shadow of Moonlight Knight Karuna." However, it notes that he has failed to clone the Moonlight Slash as the summon's shadow grade is too low due to having such high wisdom. The shadow manages to deteriorate into a lower version called Full Moon Slash, as it is significantly weaker compared to Karuna, who is only exerting 20% of the original's power. We see him now as a servant of Snowman. Meanwhile, they begin to discuss why this person is so good at a game that just came out, and multiple people start to enter the Snowman's room, pondering why Karuna is serving Snowman. Snowman is happy with this development. Although Karuna's power has deteriorated to only 20%, he has gained a hero class summon. The summon is at grade 10 and is typically of the rare class. This is no different from securing a definite survival shadow. The shadow summon is one of the few summoning arts with very generous conditions. As long as he defeats the opponent and takes their shadow, Snowman opens his chest, saying it's time to check the rewards. He has received the highest ranked chest called the Moon Chest. He levels up a couple of times and acquires a considerable amount of equipment related to Moonlight, along with some gold, potions, and skill points. We finally get to see his stats, and he holds the title, One Who Dropped the Moon. Snowman explains that whenever he levels up, he is given 4 circulating stats and 4 fixed stats. He decides to invest most of his stats into wisdom, as wisdom is his most important attribute. Aside from these stats, the most important drop is the Moonlight Sword he obtained from defeating Karuna, and he plans to give this to him, as it increases any attack using Moonlight by 20%. Snowman explains that the summons of the Shadow Summoner are characterized by their ability to grow independently and equip items. In other words, the summoner leads the growth of the summons through his power, while the summons grow independently. This means each summon requires its own investment. Although it will cost a lot, it's certainly worth it when considering the long-term value. Furthermore, he also received a staff with the wisdom stats he needed. The chatter continues as they discuss how wisdom is often deemed weak due to its ambiguous use. However, Snowman clarifies that for a shadow summoner, it is the most critical stat, having the greatest effect on loyalty, charisma, skill improvement, and the success rate when resurrecting a shadow. It is especially beneficial for someone aiming to become an elite summoner. On top of that, he even got a lottery ticket for an unexpected item. It turns out to be a seed of the moon, which he says is beneficial to eat, and he knows of a way to enhance its performance. Finally, he earns a title that grants any attack with the moon attribute a 5% increase, which applies to his summons as well. Snowman remarks that so far, so good, as he is pleased with his progress, and it's time to move to the next floor. A giant beam of light engulfs him as the second adventure begins.